I was going to do my Tenet review, but just now I got a strange feeling that I've already done it. Welcome back, everybody. Today, our movie in the middle is Tenet, the Nolaniest of Christopher Nolan films that came out last year. This movie stars John David Washington, Elizabeth Debicki, Robert Pattinson, Michael Caine, Kenneth Branagh, and a bunch of other people, and deals with things like time inversion and stopping World War III. And the plot is about something. Obviously, the biggest high is the visual effects. The inversion of everything from little puddles to whole buildings collapsing and then reforming and then collapsing again. All of it is just pretty amazing to look at. The fact that they had to figure out how to do that to make it look realistic when it's something we don't really normally know what it looks like because it's never really happened. And there was one specific scene in terms of cinematography that I was like, not only is this good for trying to understand the plot and this concept of time inversion, but it was just really interesting to look at. The other high is the acting, because John David Washington does a really, really good job. A lot of people say that, he was kind of boring or he didn't really do much, but honestly, I think that's okay because in a complex movie like this, you need somebody who's grounded. You need somebody who we're gonna follow and who's also like, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm gonna go with it. And I thought he was charming and charismatic and really good at his job. I thought he was interesting. I liked him. Robert Pattinson also does a really great job. Don't really know what his character is, but I really liked him. And Elizabeth Debicki as well. She was great in her character being somebody who is in on all of this time inversion stuff. She's like badass. She's also incredibly tall. That's neither here nor there. And then Kenneth Branagh. He's like one of my favorite actors working today, and I love him, and he was just amazing. I've rarely seen him play like an actual villain, but he did an amazing job at it. It's also cool that the main character's name is the protagonist. He doesn't actually have a name, and it's not just because, like, they do say in the film something to the effect of, I'm the protagonist in this story because you're pushing me around like a pawn or something. So that was pretty cool. So the actors did do a really good job with this script, considering even after they were done filming, they still had no idea what the movie was about. So let's get into the lows. I'm going to be straight up with you. This was one of the most frustrating movies I have ever seen in my life. I did not understand about 95% of this movie, and the sad part is it is not because of the complex concept of time inversion. It is because of the script that is so dense and so boring. It does not make sense. It is most of the script is dialogue exposition, which dialogue exposition is fine, but not the whole freaking movie. And yes, I get that it is a very new concept to put in a movie like this, and that is a high, that it is a very original concept, and I appreciate him trying to tackle this. But I gotta be honest, I felt like I was watching for 2.5 hours a foreign film without subtitles in a language I speak. It's literally going from scene to scene of this main character just talking to just different people. And then he's got to go talk to another person and then another person about something. I don't know. I mean, these regular scenes, I have no idea what's going on, and they're speaking English. Like, this movie honestly felt like the movie inside Christopher Nolan's head trying to figure out this movie before he makes it. And again, the time inversion stuff is interesting. And what they do with it in the movie is interesting. But I just don't care. I literally have no sense of stakes or attachment to the characters because while they're cool and interesting and I like them, I don't emotionally care about them. There are some scenes in this movie that are a little emotional, or there's a lot of aggression happening or something, but I just don't care because I have no idea what the fuck is going on. The entire climax happens and I did not care at all because it ends and I was like, wow, they saved something. And that gets into like a bigger discussion I want to have in terms of what's the point of watching a movie if you don't care? What's the point of making it if the audience isn't going to care? Again, I have recognized that I am not a person who is good with movies where you just have to feel it. You know, I want it to make a little bit of sense. But the thing is I can appreciate those movies. But when you have a movie that has a specific plot and is obviously geared to be a movie where it is understandable in some sense, and it's something where you have to follow this plot, and it's not just like I'm thinking of ending things, where it was more of a feeling movie and it was more of metaphorical. You have to have something that people can either attach to or understand. Like if you're going to market it as that and make a movie that is plot based, you have to have something that people understand. Otherwise, there's no point. Like, yes, you can feel the time thing, that's cool, whatever, but then I would just listen to the synopsis or listen to, the outline of the story and be like, that's a cool idea. I'd love to see those details made in the film so that I can get really into those characters. But I just didn't. And once again, I talked with Jared Samarco after watching this movie. He wanted me to watch it forever. I finally got to. And he explained most of the movie to me, and it made more sense after that. And yes, there are movies where, you have to look up afterward what happened just because you got confused or whatever. But he had to explain the entire thing to me. And even then, I still didn't get what was going on. Like, and the weird thing is, I was so focused on not understanding the plot, I almost completely forgot about the fact that people were complaining about the sound. And I did notice that. It wasn't my first thought. But I did notice that there are a lot of moments where the sound is muffled and you can't hear the dialogue, which is incredibly important, apparently. So, like, why? Why? And here's the thing that bugs me. If I, as a student filmmaker, like in college, had made something like this, not the visual part, but the story part, if I had made something like this where my teacher watched it, the whole thing, and said, I don't understand what just happened, and I wasn't attached to any of these characters, and this was so dense and confusing, you have to rewrite the whole thing, I would have failed. Maybe not failed, but he would have been like, you really got to work on this. Christopher Nolan makes it. Suddenly everybody goes, I guess I'm just not smart enough. He's making something so beyond our capabilities of understanding that he must be the greatest filmmaker. All right, that's a little dramatic, but you get my point, is that he makes it, and suddenly it gets a really good score on Rotten Tomatoes. He makes it, and suddenly it's something we have to figure out, and maybe we just don't understand because we're not, good enough at figuring out his mindset or whatever it was. And suddenly it's a good movie versus, you didn't do any of this right if it was like a student who made this. And that's what really, really bugs me. Comes a point where you just got to be like, look, it does not make sense. It was not great. Move on. You don't have to give it, like a 85, 90% just because it's Christopher Nolan. So Tenet is a movie that was made. Visually, it's incredible, and I really respect the fact that he had this incredibly complex concept and just tried the most with it. It's not one that I feel like I care enough to rewatch it to try to figure it out. I know a lot of people are gonna probably hate on me for really not liking this movie, but I just how I feel. I was incredibly frustrated with it. It really would have been a cool movie had I been able to understand anything that was happening. I'm going to give Tenet a 1 out of 4. And that's really disheartening because it's a Christopher Nolan movie. This gave my brother and I one hell of a bunch of jokes, though, because literally for the next 5 days, everything we did, we'd be like, hey, can you do that? My brother would be like, I already did it. And I'd be like, oh my God, shut up. If you did watch it, and you were just as confused as I am about the movie, go watch Screen Rant's pitch meeting on Tenet, because while it is very funny, it actually gave me more about the plot, more of an explanation of what was going on than the movie itself. Well, as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and remember, we live in a Twilight world. I will say there is one scene in which every time we cut back and forth between Robert Pattinson and John David Washington, Robert Pattinson is sitting or standing doing something different. And I was like, this does not make sense. But then I was like, oh, wait, they're doing two different time moments, whatever it might be. And it just dawned on me that Christopher Nolan was able to make a movie in which he could do any continuity error he wanted, and it wouldn't matter. He literally freed himself from continuity errors. Amazing.